Hi there, my name is FixFox and welcome back to this lazy Deathworld run. Folks, there is relative peace in this little world. Why is that? Well, you see, we've gotten the artillery back from Volcanus, and all of a sudden, the biters are just not that big of a problem. That feels good. That feels really good. That gives me an opportunity to do one thing, and that is play the game the way I want to play it. And that means that I'm going to be focusing a lot in this video on just increasing infrastructure and working on some bottlenecks and trying to troubleshoot some problems while also balancing the idea that in the future we're going to have some better tech that's really going to overhaul the base. So we want to improve things, but not too much. Yeah, it seems like a little bit of an oxymoron, but that's the way it goes. For example, these assembler 2s, yeah, let's just upgrade these to the green assemblers so that way we can get a little bit more output here and there. It seems to me like that's going to be the idea. Yeah, we're going to increase our output by increasing the value and the power of our assemblers. And also I say to myself, well, we're going to upgrade our belts, but we're going to find out pretty quickly that that's not the only thing that we can, could, or should be doing. Now, with the additional technology, not just artillery have we brought back from Volcanus, we are going to cut the supply of iron ore to these electric smelters, and we're going to drag this calcite from our cargo landing pad, and we're going to drag that all the way over to the northeastern part of our base. And that's going to be so that we can start a wonderful process of using the Foundry. Now, why use foundries? As you can see here in these electric smelters, they've got some productivity modules. That means you get more plates for your buck, like, you know, every like 5 or 6 iron ore bits, then you're gonna get one more full plate out of that once it's smelted. And that sounds pretty good, right? Free stuff for nothing. If there wasn't a gambling epidemic right now, I would like be touting how wonderful that is for all people, getting something for free, right? Well, with productivity modules, you don't have to gamble, and there is some inherent productivity baked into the Foundry. Without any productivity modules whatsoever, they will spit out additional materials and additional resources for free. And that's great. That's not even just kind of good, that's really good. It's also a little bit easier in some ways due to the way that Throughput works with pipes and the way that liquids move. There's also going to be some value there in the late game in order to get the molten materials where we want to get them, but we're going to talk about that in a while. Right now, we just get to focus on the first part of this new setup here. We've got to the east of this general position, we've got a row of foundries, and those foundries are going to start taking the calcite and mixing that with the iron ore, and that's going to make liquid. And then these foundries I'm working on right now, these are then going to take the liquid molten iron and they're going to turn that into actual iron plates, and that's going to be the way that we go. That's going to be what we do. Now, I like one important thing here. If you're saying to yourself, FixFox, I'm excited to see you build the most massive, crazy structure I've ever seen before. Yeah, you and me both, man. Right now, this is the time where we are just going to try to replace things to get the increased productivity bonus. I'm not looking to build at scale just yet. I think that when I get back from all the other planets, like all the other planets, and we have all the tech available, then we're going to really try to make sure that we smash our productivity goals and we make sure that we have everything we need to get to the shattered planet in style. Not just like, oh, we barely got there, but like, no, we'll like definitely get there. But in the meantime, if I can replace the electric smelters with these foundries and I can make just as many plates as I was making, I will be happy. That'll actually be a pretty darn good goal as far as I'm concerned. And the reason being is because then I can say to myself, yeah, I'm getting all the productivity bonuses. I'm not using as much iron ore here on the planet Nalvis. My iron ore patches are not going to dry up as quick. And that seems to be pretty valuable. That seems okay. Let's do that. Okay, great. Wonderful. Good. Well, so far, we don't have anything coming in. I can see in the upper right, yeah, we are not really researching anything with steel for the steel plate productivity, and that's just because we've run out of materials. I know for a fact that our purple science is currently bottlenecked, and that's partially because, well, you know, we just don't have materials coming in. And as a secondary effect, we're not getting any amount of red circuits. We had checked on that earlier. We said, oh, we're going to upgrade our productivity or by increasing the value of our assemblers. We're going to go from assemblers 2 up to assemblers 3. Yeah, a lot of good that'll do you if you don't have full compression or full speed on your belts. Now, folks, if I'm talking about getting materials where they need to go, there's 2 main ways you can do that. We know that a yellow belt will carry 15 items per second. Great, wonderful, fantastic. But also, we know that there's no value in doing that if your belts are not fully compressed. I'll tell you right now that this Foundry setup that we currently have is not going to supply enough plates to fully saturate the belts that we need to keep production going. And it's really hard because we want to say, well, well, in that case, just fix it. Like, just get more. Yeah. You're not wrong. But to do that, I might have to completely overhaul parts of the factory. So it includes this new tech. What I'm really going to want to try and do instead, just to save time so we can get to other planets and get other tech, is utilize the spaghetti structure that's already in place and just get materials through those old cow trails, as it were. To do that, we're going to try to make sure that the belts are upgraded where necessary from red to blue belts, but also, again, try to make sure we have full compression. What's the point of having the fastest belt in the world if it's not fully compressed, I ask you? I'm going to leave this balancer up here. Eventually, we're going to send all of the iron plates through that little section up there. It will take a while before we actually fully utilize that. Again, for now, we're trying to make good use of the spaghetti that's already currently in place, but we'll get there when we get there. I, at one point, had talked about wanting to use the planet of Vulcanus just to make belts and then ship them in. And yeah, we're going to do that at some point. For now, that's going to be not critically important. Definitely when we get into the tier 4 belts, the turbo belts, those I'm going to ship all over the galaxy. Until that time, it doesn't hurt my feelings too bad, just to make sure that we're using blue belts here on the planet once we do have them researched. Right now, logistics is still working through. But we are back to having at least a trickle. Yes, a trickle of resources coming in from our iron plates. It's not too bad. A little bit of speed module here and there could make things go too bad. We mentioned wanting to double the production there. I'm not too sure if 4 foundries that have some speed modules and productivity modules are going to supply enough molten iron to supply all of that, but we're going to sure find out in a little bit. Once again, I go back and check. Oh, we are out of purple science, and it's all because we are low on red productivity modules. And the reason that we're not getting the red chips, well, clearly we don't have enough materials up on these belts. I'm going to pull one full new belt of this iron plate, and it's not going to last long enough, right? It's not going to be enough. We're not going to have enough materials being produced in order to fully supply this new belt that I've just sent up here. And so we are going to have to double our iron plate production with the foundries. But still, it's nice to see that, okay, this new belt, proof of concept, it is going to increase the amount of iron ore we're getting down the end to these assemblers. And then with that in mind, I'm also going to come at this another way. On the one hand, if you have a little bit of issue with your throughput and you don't have enough material getting all the way down to the belts, you can also slow down your machines by just adding more productivity modules. Like, it will technically go slower, right? But in that way, you can temporarily, theoretically, catch up to your production. It's not going to be great, though. It's less than ideal. Sure, you want the max productivity. You don't want the bottleneck, though, of just saying, I don't have enough materials. Okay, so still I notice, hey, look, we got a problem here. That is my red chip production. That was the line I was just showing you. I'm just saying to myself, look, folks, I got to figure this out. What's the problem? I'm trying to fit in whatever additional copper cables or anything else I possibly can to make sure that we are fully saturating that section there. But I say, look, I don't have another section of room. I can't place new belts down to increase the productivity and these weird little builds. Instead, I just have to get a faster belt. And so here it is. Here's the faster belts. Here's the blue belts coming on in. And they are going to actually make a massive difference because there's a few places where I used copper cables on the one side of the belt, and then on the other side of the belt, I did something else. For example, plastic. When it comes to the red circuits there, you can see it looks like in this case it was one full belt of plastic and then green circuits on one side and then the copper cables on the other. Yeah, for the big build to the west of this position, that is actually going to be quite a big difference. Once we have the blue belt, that's going to prevent a lot of problems. All right, at this point I'm playing Transport Belt Madness. If you've never played that before, right, I would actually highly recommend that you check out some of those alternative game modes available here in Factorio. They're actually really, really fun, and they do teach you quite a few things. I am just moving belts out of the way. I'm just finding a way through. There is probably no reason why this lubricant should have been able to make its way straight through the very, very middle of my base, but it worked. And because it worked, like, am I ever going to learn and do something different in the future? No. No, because it worked, I'm never going to learn anything. All right, finally, we have blue belts here, and we have the blue undergrounds. And for the first time, as you can see these machines kind of turning on, they are finally, for the first time in a long time, getting copper cables all the way down to the end of that row, and that feels great to me. We're trying to put just as many of these copper cables as we possibly can fit into here. This actually was a time that, when I think about it later, I do wish that I had just bucked up and threw a foundry somewhere in here and just found a way to make this happen. Again, I didn't throw the foundry down at this point simply because I knew that I was going to come back later and redesign all of my electronic circuits once we get the EM plant from Fulgora. But still, there's a part of me that just wishes I'd done things more correctly than this. Still, I threw a band-aid on it. And as you can see, we finally have full compression on that blue belt going through the red circuits. And there is the red circuits, the advanced circuits there. That's where we were at. We're all the way up to here. Technically, this is more red circuits now than we had before. And technically, that's a win. Hey, we did it. Bada bing. Okay. If it looks stupid, but it works, it's not stupid. Okay. At this point, we are going to start researching the atomic bomb through our science labs. I'm going to throw down this second bit of iron plate production. Again, we're not fully saturating these belts, so at this point, that's an easy fix. At least 2 of these kind of smelting stacks, that should work pretty well for us. And the question is, again, going to be whether or not the initial 4 foundries are going to be able to supply all the materials necessary to keep making those belts. Okay, but with fully saturated belts, we are improving our lab modules wherever possible, getting as much productivity out of that science as we can. That looks like a pretty good solid line. The iron plates have backed up, and now as we check our iron ore and our iron plate, you can see in just a second that they're going to be very, very different from each other. We are now making way more iron plates than we were 10 hours ago, which is great. And also, as you take a look at this, the orange line is our iron ore production, and the top line is our iron plate production. I love that those 2 things are no longer married. There's no longer a 1-to-1 ratio there, right? 1 iron ore does not equal 1 iron plate anymore, and that's the value of the productivity. Likewise, we're getting the same basic thing with our copper ore and our copper plates. That means that we are being good. That means that we are improving the factory. That means we're using less resources and getting just as much or more out of it. And that is a good day. Folks, thanks for the time. Thanks for the energy. Appreciate you. And I'm looking very, very much forward to seeing you in the next one. It's going to be one more video trying to improve things and then off to Fulgora. Bye now.